Welcome back to Munchausen's Proxy. Before I get into this week's spoiler review of Gotham Knights Episode 6, I want to thank all of you who watched my video on the Equalizer 3 trailer. Because of you, that video popped over 2,000 in less than 3 days, and it is now well past 8,000 as my most viewed video. Now, I am aware that a lot of that has to do with the anticipation for that movie. But still, it was a nice surprise to log in and find that video did so well. On the opposite end, I guess there are fewer people who finally remember Twisted Metal, as I do. Oh well, that one was mostly for me anyway. Peacock does not get the kind of traffic that lures people into videos about their stuff. Hell, I have seen people who don't even know what it is yet. But on to the Gotham Knights Episode 6 spoiler review, with a shout out to Az who came up with that apt moniker. If you recall, and if you don't, I completely understand because I wish I didn't even after a week off. Last episode had our band of idiots tracing laundered money to the McKillans' warehouse, hoping that if they get the McKillans' ledger, they can bring down the Court of Owls. They were caught, but then escaped with a bunch of money that they then threw into the streets to help them get away from the crooked cops chasing them, hence the news media calling them Gotham Knights. Oh, and Robin got caught in a lie so stupid I had a hard time believing it, because she wasn't at the school parents' luncheon when she was supposed to be, even though Mom specifically told her at the beginning of the episode she would attend. See my last review for all of my thoughts on that moronicism. I go through all of that because 2/3 of the show's plot lines this week deal with all of that and its fallout. So we open this episode with a newscast about Joe Chill, the guy convicted of killing Bruce Wayne's parents and sentenced to death. Well, apparently they are finally getting around to killing him after 50 years. Harvey goes to see him because Chill's lawyer requested a visit from him. Harvey gets there and asks Chill why he wanted to see him. He responds by wondering why, after 5 decades, the city is suddenly so keen to kill him. He then shows Harvey the owl coin he received with his breakfast that morning. He can tell by Harvey's expression that he knows exactly what it is and what it means. Harvey tries to get Chill to tell him what he knows about the Court of Owls, but Chill makes it clear he will tell Harvey nothing. No, what he wanted Harvey there for was his connection to the Wayne family. He figures if there is anyone in the entirety of Gotham who can get him a talk with the kid accused of killing Batman, it is the guy chasing the kid who killed Batman. Don't think too hard about that or your head will explode. But Turner is the only one he will talk about anything more consequential than the weather. Then we finally see Stephanie's dad, Arthur Brown, on the opening of an episode of Quiz Bowl he is taping. She is waiting for him in his dressing room, telling him the questions he is asking for the show are too easy. He replies that someone other than her needs to be able to win the show. He then asks what she's doing there since she hates the show. Since the studio is the only place she can see him, that is where she has to be to ask him about the ledger. He is fascinated, asking if it is for school. She smiles and tells him the truth, but when he gives her a disbelieving look, she tells him that of course it's for school. She tries to wheedle his help, but he tells her she will figure it out, using a rather specific phrasing that she completely ignores. For reasons. Because of course, the brain of the show ignores the clue her puzzle master father gives her. After Dad leaves to go back on set, she gets a call from Harvey. At Gotham General Hospital, Robin waits to see her mother. Mom tells her that she promised Robin's history teacher that she would bank up all of her missing work. Therefore, Robin is stuck in the hospital every day after school until her homework is done. When Robin protests, Mom asks if she has somewhere better to be, and Robin just kind of gives her a blank stare, trying to come up with some answer that will get her out of having to go to the hospital every day. In the tower, Turner is shocked when Stephanie tells him that Harvey wants to set up an off-the-books meeting between him and Joe Chill. Duella is psyched about that, telling them Joe Chill was the inspiration to generations of crooks in Gotham. Turner informs her that Bruce thought the Court of Owls hired Joe Chill to whack the Waynes, wondering if that tempered her feelings of admiration towards him, since he is just another lackey for the court. Duella points out that without Joe Chill, there would have been no Batman. Cullen is more curious about why Chill wants to see Turner. Turner, however, is uninterested at all. Stephanie then informs him that Chill received a coin, and suddenly he is more interested, wondering if Joe Chill might know something about the Court of Owls. Turner's obsession with the court wins out, as we all knew it would, with him saying he would risk just about anything to take them down. Harvey meets with Turner that night in subway tunnels. Harvey is surprised he actually showed up, but Turner reminds him that he always kept his word to Harvey, which is when Duella pops out of the shadows to put a knife to Harvey's throat. He demands to know what they are doing, and Turner shoots back that he didn't say he would come alone. He made that mistake with Cressida. When Harvey asks him about seeing Cressida, Turner informs him that she is with the Court of Owls, that she poisoned Bruce so their assassin could kill him. Harvey tells them that they need answers about the court, but Joe Chill will only talk to Turner. If he turns them in, he doesn't get answers he needs. He tells Duella that if it were a trap, there would be a GCPD SWAT team with him who would have put a bullet in her head when she pulled a knife on him. She agrees, putting the knife away and leaving, with the quip, "Have fun trusting each other." Turner asks how they will do this if Chill is being executed in a few hours. We then get the newscast telling exactly how. The telecaster makes the shocking announcement that Harvey Dent got a stay of execution, with Lincoln March pouncing on the opportunity to show Harvey is soft on crime. He points out that Harvey has failed to catch Bruce Wayne's killers, and now he is stopping the execution of his parents' killers. How long until he betrays the people of Gotham? Duella is watching, and she thinks maybe she was wrong about Harvey. Behind her, Stephanie and Harper are looking at the ledger. Harper snarking at her, saying she thought her dad was going to give her a clue. Stephanie excuses her dad, telling her he is really busy and she can't exactly tell him what she is really doing. Duella butts in, telling them that tonight they drink in honor of Joe Chill. Stephanie says no, tonight she is cracking the cipher, wondering if anyone has a better idea than alcohol. The girls all tease her and try to get her to drink. Cullen, however, objects to Harper drinking, but she tells him she is taking care of herself by relaxing with a drink. Stephanie caves and tosses one back, asking for another. Back at Gotham General, Robin literally bumps into Brody doing his community service by wheeling around a food cart. She leads him to oncology, and he asks her what she is in for. She replies, not living up to her mother's expectations. He doesn't look like he believes her when she asks if he has met Dr. Kelly, which is when he finally gets it. Back at the tower, the idiots are polishing off the bottle of whiskey they are downing. And because this is the CW, you just know they will solve the unbreakable cipher while completely plastered. Cullen can't believe Stephanie's dad didn't even give her a hint, but she defends him by saying he is challenging her, that he always had high expectations for her. Duella and Stephanie start snarking at each other over their daddy issues when Cullen comes over and takes Stephanie's cup away, wanting her to focus. She recites what her father told her, and Harper's eyes light up and tells her he did give her a clue. The ledger uses a book cipher like the villain in the last Sherlock Holmes book did. Which is when Cullen lets slip that Harper is a huge fan of her father's show and never misses it, much to her embarrassment. Harper explains to Duella what a book cipher is, and Cullen says all they have to do is find the one book used among a billion possibilities, which I was positive was going to wind up being easier than it is made to seem, because this is the CW. Harvey then gets in to see Joe Chill with a SWAT officer in full tactical gear, including a mask. Bet you can guess who was really under there. Chill thinks he failed to get Turner when Turner unmasks. Chill tells Turner he knows he didn't kill Bruce, that the evidence came together just a little too easily. Nothing ever falls into place in such a straight line unless somebody is putting it that way. The night the Waynes were killed, he was given a job to mug a rich couple. He didn't know they would have their kid with them. He had a .38 to scare them, but he never pulled the trigger since the gun was unloaded. Bruce only thought he saw Chill kill his parents, but the shots came from behind Chill. Turner has trouble believing it, but Chill counters by asking if it is true he used the same gun to kill Bruce. Back at the hospital, Robin is doing homework when Brody comes over to ask if she could find her mom for a guy in one of the rooms. Robin tells him to find a nurse. She is probably busy. However, he has already tried all that, and they were all too busy. Robin explains that it has been like that since Batman was killed. Brody says he is not sure the guy can wait much longer, but that is when Robin sees her mom. She looks at her mom's weary face, but then tells Brody to take her to the guy. Back at the prison, because the CW keeps its editors well supplied, Harvey is having a hard time believing that Chill thinks the Court of Owls framed him, asking if he told anyone this theory. Chill laughs, saying he told anyone who would listen, but it didn't matter since the court had their hooks into GCPD. He says he can't blame Bruce Wayne for hating him. He was little. But when he learned Bruce was Batman, then he blamed him. The world's greatest detective couldn't figure out that Chill was framed. It is why he wanted to talk to Turner, to tell his story before it doesn't matter anymore, to explain that they are more alike than he thinks. Turner agrees that the court used him to fit a narrative. The worst part is that everyone believed it. He tells Joe Chill that he believes him. He then begs for information. But we cut to the school library, where the idiots have books strewn and piled everywhere, combing the stacks for the book. They are looking for one at least 700 pages long to fit the ledger's cipher. Cullen just so happens to see James Joyce's Ulysses in the return bin, which is the book they need. And back to prison, where they talk about the coin. Chill thinks he was kept alive as an example and an inspiration for the criminal class. Turner thinks that ended when the idiots started poking around in their business. Chill became a loose end. He tells Harvey that they will probably start to hand out more coins to those needing tidying up. Chill wonders if Harvey got one, but since he hasn't, Chill thinks it is useful to the court to have him doing what he is already doing. Turner asks how they stop them, and Chill tells him they are too powerful. They are in the stones and the bones of the city. Turner protests, wondering why he asked to see him if that is how he feels. Chill tells him it is so he can see him and know that this is his future, that a quick death is better than 50 years in a cage. Turner asks why Chill would be a threat to the court now when he wasn't before. Chill tells him he had a cellmate who told him he knew the key to finding the court. Before they can say more, the guard captain interrupts, saying they need to prep the prisoner for the execution. When Harvey protests that he has a stay, the guard tells him that it was rescinded by the governor and the execution is back on for tonight. Chill tells Turner that the guy kept reciting the rhyme, "Beware the court of owls that watches all the time." He keeps reciting that as he is led away. And then we were back at the hospital again. Robin tries to help the guy Brody saw. The stitches he has are busted and he is bleeding. He tells the guy she will help him and gives Brody a list of things she needs. She orders him to give it to the supply nurse and be his charming self to get what she needs. And the meth is still flowing, so we cut to Turner and Harvey once more in the subway tunnels, because CW cannot afford sets and lighting so he can see what is actually going on. Turner asks Harvey if he can get another stay, and Harvey tells him no. The governor has the last word. Turner then tells him they need to make sure Joe Chill's death is not for nothing. Harvey asks him about the rhyme, and he teases Harvey about starting to believe him about the whole crazy thing. Harvey knows someone is pulling the strings, but it is definitely not Turner. He asks Turner to be careful, and they hug. As Harvey leaves, Turner asks him to tell him if he gets one of those coins. But we cut back to the hospital, where Brody returns with the stuff Robin asked for, wondering when Robin's mom is coming. Robin tells him her mom isn't. She is going to do it. She explains that she practiced on fruit and got to be pretty good. He protests that this isn't fruit. Then she asks if he's going to stand there or help. She asks him to keep the wound clear as she restitches the guy. When Turner gets back to the tower, Duella wants to know where her Joe Chill autograph is. Then the validation and talking about feelings part of the show begins. Turner tells them that Chill dies an innocent man tonight because he was like them. But they had one thing Chill never did, a team, which is why they are not giving up. He then inquires about the ledger, and Harper makes sure to let him know she was the one to figure out the code was in a book cipher. And holy crap, is the writing terrible. They figured out the ledger has a street address in it, and Turner speechifies before saying they are going to the address. Stephanie starts to follow, and Harper says, Whoa, where do you think you're going? Stephanie wants to see if she is right, and Harper tells her it is too dangerous. Stephanie fires back that it could be their favorite takeout place for all they know. Cullen follows them, and the other girls are peer pressured into following. The idiots then sneak through the back alley of a boxing gym in a rough neighborhood. Motorcycles are parked near the building. When they peek in the window, they see bikers with AK-47s and bags of drugs. When Harper asks what they are packing, Stephanie tells her they are opioids. When she demands to know how she knows, Cullen covers for her by saying that what else would they be packing with that kind of heat? Duella smiles and says they now know the ledger is real, so they should go find a quiet place to call the cops. Cullen points out that the McKillans have cops on the payroll. Stephanie says that is a lot of lives ruined in there, and Duella is not sure how that is their problem. Harper agrees that they could stop them. Duella starts arguing against it, saying they are not the Gotham Knights, no matter what the stupid news says. Turner tells her some things are worth the risk, and she counters that some fights will get him killed, that the good deeds that give him the warm and fuzzies will turn into a shootout that he won't walk away from. She decamps. Stephanie takes a deep breath and asks if anyone wants to give her a crash course on being a vigilante. When they come back from commercial, Harper suddenly is not enthused since they are now down 2 fighters with Robin gone and Duella bowing out. Stephanie points out she is an experienced fencer, and Harper snarks back at her about pirate ships, but Turner sticks up for her. He adds that they will have the element of surprise just as lightning starts in the sky, which is what Harvey is watching out his office window as the rain starts. Lincoln March comes in, bitching about being dragged out in the bad weather. Harvey demands to know where his security detail is, that he is still in danger, so you know he will be attacked shortly. Lincoln snarks back that now he's interested in his safety. Harvey tells him that the coin he got means he is marked for death. And we cut to the execution. Now, you really have to pay attention at this point, because this is about where the editor started mainlining his meth. The priest is reading the last rites to Joe Chill, as he is being led to his execution. It is intercut with the idiots rushing into the gym and kicking the crap out of hardened criminals who are all either without weapons or obligingly let themselves be disarmed by the rather thin morons trying to fight them. Stephanie watches on with amazement. And then we cut back to the conversation with Harvey and Lincoln. That was not finished. He tells Lincoln he needs to get somewhere safe. It was at this point I was sure what was going to happen. Lincoln would be attacked and injured, but be quite all right after a suitable time in the hospital to garner voter sympathy to support him, thereby shooting his poll numbers through the roof. Harvey tells him that the people who left that coin, but Lincoln interjects, saying, "Don't you mean person?" Harvey has no idea what he's talking about, and you know this because he's got that dumb, squinty look on his face that is so characteristic of Harvey Dent in this show. Lincoln thinks it is Harvey who planted the coin, but I am quite sure it was Lincoln who gave it to himself. And then we are back to the execution, where the priest is still at the last rites, and the idiots are still at the gym fighting with bikers. And as anyone with a brain knew would happen as soon as she mentioned her fencing skills, Stephanie saves Cullen from being shot by using a bar to disarm one of the thugs. Cullen helps subdue him. Then Stephanie slugs a guy, and I am shocked she did not shatter her hand, because her punch had no effect. He slowly, ever so slowly, raises a gun to shoot her, but gave Harper plenty of time to come to the rescue with a barbell plate. They nod to each other in recognition of each other's awesomeness. Then Stephanie goes mental with a dumbbell on the pills laying around. And we cut back to the conversation that is still going on with Harvey. Him not believing Lincoln thinks he left the coin. Lincoln tells him he has friends at GCPD who tell him Harvey took out the coin that was in evidence the same day he received his coin. He thinks it's a scare tactic to get him out of the race. Harvey tells him he is trying to save his life. Lincoln fires back moronically with, "Just like you saved Joe Chill's?" And we cut back to the execution again, where the priest is still at it. Joe Chill opens his hand and drops the coin, then they fry him as lightning strike flashes. And we are back with Harvey, as the lights go out in his building. He suddenly realizes they did not go out in the building across the street. He turns around and Talon is behind Lincoln. He says Lincoln's name as Talon stabs him through the back. But the stab is suspiciously low on the torso, well below the ribcage. Suspicious because Talon's daughter described his work with a blade as surgical, which means he knows exactly where he can stab and not do much damage. Talon then puts the blade against Harvey's neck, forcing him down into a crouch for some reason before he puts the sword away and disappears in another flash of lightning. The police show up at the gym to find it wrecked. They see the drugs and the guns, and then they find the thugs tied up, with GK spray painted on the floor near them. Then we get the news announcement for Joe Chill's execution. Duella is watching and drinking to him when Turner comes in. That is when the news talks about Gotham Knights, and the rest of the idiots come in. Cullen saying it is a good thing they signed their work this time. Duella turns it off, saying she is not buying into the hype. If they do, they will wind up in prison right next to the drug dealers. Stephanie wants to know what now, and Turner says they will know that when they decode the rest of the ledger and find out where the money is going. Back at the hospital, they bring in Brody's father, right past where he and Robin are standing. He will, of course, be fine. Back in the tower, Turner comes up to see if Stephanie is okay. She fronts, saying it is nothing time with a ice pack won't fix. He says she will get used to it, and she starts crying, not sure about that. She freaks out about almost dying. He tells her she did great. She finally realized how scary it is for all of them. He tells her that if they weren't scared, they'd be dead. She wonders how they won't wind up like Chill if the court has their hooks into the governor, too. More validation is needed, so he tells her Joe Chill didn't have someone like her helping him, that only she believed in him, and even helped the weirdos. Everyone adds something to the team, and he would have given up if it weren't for her. She is about to kiss him when she gets a text about Brody's dad. She leaves, apologizing. At the hospital, Robin is with him, trying to comfort him when Stephanie comes in and hugs him. Dr. Mom comes out to tell him that Dad is fine, as we all knew he would be. Robin stops her mom from leaving and hugs her. Back at Harvey's office, he is wigging out. Badly. I mean, the acting is bad. He sees himself in a mirror and punches it. The camera makes sure to show the two halves of his face with a crack separating them, which is how they end the episode. I know I keep harping on the editor, but it is hard to miss how often this show jumps around, especially in the middle of tense conversations that are really only a few minutes long. Instead of just having the conversation, they cut it into 3 or 4 sections interspersed with other nonsense to make it seem longer. But never mind. The editor is giving me ADD, but I will endeavor to focus more than he or she can. Let's start with the whole Joe Chill sequence, to get it out of the way. Was it dumb? Of course. Was there any utility in it for the overall story the show is trying to tell? Of course not. Was it a huge waste of time and money? Absolutely. In no media that I could find was it ever suggested he was working for the Court of Owls. That they decided to haul him into this disaster was ridiculous. But let's put that aside for 1 second and assume that this is not just poorly written trash fit only for burning. Let's assume Joe Chill was sitting on a 50-year stint on death row for something he didn't do. What kind of idiot thinks the guy trying to find and arrest the killers of Bruce Wayne, to include his adopted son, thinks that same guy can convince said adopted son to trust him enough to sneak into prison and back out again just to talk to the guy responsible for killing his adopted grandparents? Oh, and then there's this little matter of a stay of execution. Those are not handed out like party favors. But somehow, Harvey was able to get one for one of the most notorious murderers in Gotham history. On what legal basis? If Chill was on death row for 50 years, all of his appeals should have run out decades ago, and the sentence carried out. What exactly would Harvey, who could not get Joe Chill to tell him anything other than the only person he would talk to is Turner, tell the governor or a judge to get him to stay an execution that should have happened before Turner was born and before Harvey got out of elementary school? There is nothing, because the scenario is retarded above and beyond the whole Joe Chill was framed by the Court of Owls thing. Then we have the ledger, and the clue Stephanie's dad gave her. Stephanie, the girl who is supposed to be the brains on the band of idiots, somehow misses a clue from her father, with whom she has been playing puzzle games her whole life? Unlikely. But let's say that she did. It is only after said idiots are nice and lubricated with copious amounts of whiskey that Harper figures it out? Right. And why did Stephanie not tell them what her father said before they got liquored up? Why did they need to get drunk before the brain cells kicked an answer out? That is not how brains work, guys. Then we have Robin at Gotham General for being a retarded crime fighter. Smart crime fighters make sure their mommies don't begin to wonder what the hell she is doing with her free time, that her teachers are mentioning her absences and missing homework, especially when she is supposed to be smart. That means making sure to do homework and show up at luncheons that mommy told her she would be at. Instead, Robin is a moron and is now shackled to the hospital for the foreseeable future so mommy can make sure her homework is done. And who should she meet there? Brody, doing community service for hacking into the banking system. But let's ignore that since we talked about all that stupidity already. So, he finds a dude whose stitches have popped and is in desperate enough shape to ask community service dude to get him help because apparently all of the nurses on the ward are ignoring the help button. And everyone he asks for help doesn't. Except for Robin. What does Robin do? Opens the hospital up to a huge lawsuit by sewing the guy up herself. Personally, I would be suing the hospital anyway because popping stitches can make you bleed out or become septic. Nothing about that situation was believable either. The writers are just pulling out of their asses and throwing it at the paper, hoping a script appears. The Turner Harvey meetup spot just goes to show you how broke CW is. They do a shot with a train going by in a subway somewhere at the start of the shot, but you never see it again. All you hear are the noises of the trains. And because it is pitch black everywhere but under the light rods illuminating the scene, you can't see anything. Which is why it is believable that Duella could sneak out of the shadows to put a knife to Harvey's throat. And then they used the same set after the prison scenes to show the two hug before parting. CW. Find better sets or locations for this crap. It looks shoddy as hell. The execution scene was badly done as well. The set was terrible. A bare-bones effort that did not look the least bit like an execution chamber. It looked like a basement storage room on one of the lots at Warner Brothers that they cleared out, put an electric chair in, and painted the walls dingy. Where were the witnesses to the execution? Every legal execution in the United States is required to have witnesses. Generally, the warden and the convict's priests are there, as well as members of the victim's family. There is also a doctor present to verify the execution has been carried out properly. All we saw were two guards, the guard captain, and a priest. I am actually amazed that they got the part about wetting down the head before frying him correct. That they intercut the whole thing with not only the conversation between Harvey and Lincoln, but with the assault on the boxing gym, was maddening. Speaking of the Harvey-Lincoln debate, holy crap was that predictable. I saw it coming 2 episodes ago. As soon as Lincoln came to Harvey with the coin, I was positive he would wind up being attacked, and the attack would fail to be fatal. It will wind up getting him elected mayor. The writing for the whole conversation was bad, but the acting matched it in badness. What is wrong with Misha Collins? Did he sign up for this show before reading these junk scripts or something? And I have seen better from Damon Dayoub as well. Not sure what the deal with Talon making Harvey cower was all about, but I'm sure it will be stupid too. Anyone who paid attention to the episode about Talon where they explained where he came from knows that he should never have stabbed Lincoln March anywhere other than somewhere fatal. He either should have lopped his head off or stabbed him through the heart. The fact that he didn't means it was on purpose. And therefore, you can assume the court does not want Lincoln March dead, but alive and in sympathetic shape. Which is why none of this was anything other than predictable when it becomes later known that he is absolutely fine and will recover from his injuries in the hospital. A small thing that I am sure CW will forget about, but how long did it take those idiots to put all those books back? And when did they do it? Because as soon as Turner comes back from talking to Dead Man Walking, they split to go fight the opioid bikers. They kind of need to make sure to clean up after themselves in the school if they want to remain undetected. Although, whoever pays the utilities at the school has got to be wondering why the hell their bill is going up each month. Speaking of the fight at the gym, I'm not buying that scene either. Now, it's a little hard to tell because there were so many jump cuts and cuts back to the prison and cuts to the conversation with Harvey and Lincoln. But no, not buying it. First of all, there is not a single idiot I would believe could walk into a boxing gym full of drug-dealing bikers and just beat the crap out of them. Not even Oliver Morgan, who plays Turner. All of them look like they could use a few weeks on the carnivore diet to put some meat on their bones, which means the fight scene with the hulking bikers looked positively silly. But Hollywood will Hollywood. They used to know how to make fight scenes look realistic, but they seem to have lost that ability for the most part in the last decade. More and more audiences are called on to suspend belief to ludicrous levels as they parade out rail-thin men and under-muscled women to go hand-to-hand with large, well-muscled men who obligingly fall down at the slightest touch. I mentioned this in my reviews for the arc, and it goes doubly, triply, quadruply for this nonsensical farce. The one thing I did not have a problem with during the run-up to and the fight in the gym scene was Stephanie's reaction to the opioids. That was actually pretty good, as was Cullen covering for her. That dynamic with her and Cullen and her hatred of drugs in general would be characteristic of someone forced to watch a loved one kill themselves slowly with drugs or alcohol. I was a bit surprised that they decided to have Duella be the voice of reason amongst the idiots. As a matter of fact, that is exactly why I don't buy that either. It is merely another misuse of her as a character. I am not sure they know what they're doing with her at this point in the season. She has no reliably consistent character. Now, defenders of CW's latest dumpster fire will argue that it is exactly that trait, the inconsistent nature of her, that makes Duella Duella. That is creatively bankrupt twaddle. Duella should be the figure amongst the fugitives who is the most chaotic and willing to throw a grenade just to see what kind of trouble it stirs up. Having her look at a situation and simply say, "Nah, I'm good. You guys go ahead, but I'm out," really doesn't work. I would more believe that out of Harper, especially if she is trying to protect Cullen from getting hurt in the process. And that is exactly what happens when they came back from commercial. One minute, it was Duella arguing against going in all by herself. The next, you have Harper arguing the same thing, only now Duella is gone. Did nobody check the script for consistency? Or was the audience just supposed to forget about the prior conversation when they come back from commercial? And after the fight, following their creative use of spray paint at the gym, we have the news regaling the Gotham public with the further exploits of the Gotham Knights. I just knew, when they started using that moniker last episode, that it would wind up being overused in these badly done news clips. The idiots return to the tower to find Duella watching the news. She turns it off and once more assumes the role of voice of reason as she tells them not to buy into the hype they are creating in the news. If they do, they will wind up in the same prison the people that are fighting wind up in. While this is sensible, it should not be coming from Duella's mouth. That should not be why she is on this show. Yet another criminally miswritten scene for her character. Finally, we have Stephanie with a bit of shell shock after her first real fight. Totally understandable, and I would have been all over it if she had reacted any other way. The problem I have with that scene is that it is being used to once again push the whole Turner-Stephanie-Brody love triangle, which was old and retarded in episode 1. It is clumsy, poorly written, and poorly acted in every scene they try to throw it into. This episode was no different. While the show ends with Harvey in his office staring at a broken mirror, that whole character is a joke. Harvey Dent, as acted by Misha Collins, is a bumbling, stupid, squinting buffoon. The writers and showrunners can't seem to help themselves in trotting out the obvious hints to Harvey Dent being Two-Face, and this scene was no different. The first thing I thought of, however, was not Two-Face. It was the Green Goblin played by Willem Dafoe in the first Spider-Man movies starring Tobey Maguire. They are not being subtle with this, and I don't think they have the talent to come even close to doing that storyline justice. The performance Misha Collins is putting in does not help that at all either. Oh, and one more thing. The Ledger. You know, the thing that they've been playing with for the last 2 episodes. The thing that they made completely useless in this episode. If you want to get the most out of the Ledger, you go to the boxing gym, make sure the information is real, then you go back home and you decode the rest of the information. The second you go to that boxing gym, beat the crap out of everybody there, and then call the cops, everything in that ledger has a time limit on it. And I seriously doubt these idiots are going to use it in a timely manner. Which means none of that information is going to be good for very long. But the writers of CW and Gotham Knights don't know that, because they're all morons with overinflated views of their own creative ability and intelligence. This whole episode was as bad as the rest of this season has been. That Nexstar has not already come out and canceled this mess amazes me. Gotham Knights is hovering near Batwoman lows and seems incapable of lifting itself out of the 400,000s. While that might do for a niche channel like Sci-Fi, it should not be good enough for CW. And it should definitely not be good enough for James Gunn and David Zaslav. I am shocked either one of them did not see this train wreck and cancel it just to save the DC brand the embarrassment. Then again, that kind of thinking is in short supply out of Hollywood these days. Hollywood studios simply do not value their franchises as they once did, allowing trash like this to make the brands like DC worth less and less as time goes on. That is all for this episode 6 review of Gotham Knights. I should be getting up the video with my thoughts on the Flash trailer dropped this past week. I will also be working on getting the trailer for Haunting in Venice out. That is the third Hercule Poirot movie done by Kenneth Branagh, and the previous 2 were a mixed bag. Murder on the Orient Express was pretty good, but Death on the Nile was a bit of a snoozer, with a less entertaining story and a cast that was so-so at best. Hopefully, A Haunting in Venice is better. I think this is supposed to be Kenneth Branagh's last Hercule Poirot movie. As I said, I liked the first one, second one was so-so, so I'm looking forward to seeing what this trailer reveals. If you like the video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share the video, and comment down below. Thank you all again for the response to the Equalizer trailer video. The next video should be in a day or so. Until then, tschüss.